Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to the next Legal Lines where my special guest is Sheriff Sid Gautreaux. Sid is the Sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish, and he's going to talk to us about some good news. Crime has gone down since we last spoke a couple of years ago. He's going to tell us why, what new programs he's implementing along with the District Attorney Hiller Moore and the other law enforcement officials, and he's going to talk to us about the need for new prisons. If we don't decide voluntarily, the federal courts are going to make us do it. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Sheriff Sid Gautreaux.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith and I have a Legal Lines tip for you. Remember, knowledge is power. And I want you to know if you're injured, Louisiana law grants you a variety of claims to make sure you're fully compensated. It's generally chopped up into several categories, the first being general damages. That's going to compensate you for your mental and physical pain and suffering, your scarring, disability, functional limitations, your loss of enjoyment of life. Also, it will compensate your family, frankly, for your loss of affection. It's called loss of consortium claim. Next category is specific damages. Those would be, say, for example, past and future lost wages, past and future medical expenses. You also have a claim sometimes for what's called punishment damages or punitive damages, typically only available when you're injured by a drunk party. Finally, you're entitled to legal interest from the date you file your lawsuit until you're paid and court costs. So my Legal Lines tip to you from me, Locke Meredith, make sure you know what your claims are.
This has been Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have back on the show Sheriff Sid Gautreaux. Sheriff Gautreaux is the sheriff for East Baton Rouge Parish. Sid, it's great to see you.
Thank you, my friend.
I appreciate you coming in and kind of updating us.
Appreciate you having me.
Quickly just tell folks a little bit about your background. You've been in law enforcement your entire adult life.
Yeah, I started my career with the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office in 1976, and I worked in a prison for the first year, and I was a sergeant uniform patrol when I resigned in 1980 to run for chief of police in Baker. I did 7 terms there from 1980.
27 years, right?
Yeah, to 2007. Then in 2007, I resigned and ran for sheriff, and I've been sheriff since 2007.
And let's toot your horn. You ran, well, actually, you didn't, I guess, have to formally run. I don't know how that works, but yeah. Nobody opposed you when you ran for re-up.
Yeah, and that happened to me 4 times in Baker. I was very blessed, very fortunate. I never thought it would really happen here, the size of the parish we have, but I was there again. I felt very blessed and honored that I was unopposed this last term, and that's the first time that's happened in 46 years. The last time it happened was with Sheriff Brian Clemens. So
it's amazing,
and it's kind of twofold. One thing you really want to be able to get out and campaign and tell people how much you appreciate them giving you the opportunity, and it gives you a chance to really showcase your department and what you've done. But it is nice not having to get out there and worry for 6 months what's going to happen, whether or not you're going to have a job or not.
I think it also means that you're doing your job well. And in fact, I just did a show with our District Attorney Hiller Moore. He also was unopposed. Right. And we met back in 2012. We met, the District Attorney and I met, and then the Chief of Police and the Colonel Mike Edmondson of the State Police, and we were talking about crime in Louisiana, and particularly in the state, in the parish, in the city. And you guys were putting your heads together and coming up with a lot of strategies. So based on what Hiller's just told me and what we've heard in private discussions, crime has come down.
Yeah, and I attribute that to a lot of things, and what I'm very proud about is that all the things we talked about back in 2012, most of it came to fruition. We were able to put things together, make some coordinated efforts between all the agencies involved, all the players to be involved, to really put our heads together and really work together to create some of these entities that we have.
No turf wars.
No, and that's the thing. Locke, you and I have talked about it. In this day and age, it's not about me or you. It doesn't matter what color uniform you wear, what size, shape your badge is. We're all in this thing together.
That's right.
And the only way we're going to be successful and serve the public in the manner in which we want to and they deserve is working together.
Well, and the bottom line is, every one of you folks have limited resources, whether it's manpower, money, technology, equipment. And when you combine it and put all of your resources together, you become quite a formidable force.
That's exactly right. And we've proven that over the last several years, that working together for a common cause and a common good is where we're going to be successful. And you know, where we want to be, absolutely not. But where have we come a long way, and we're a lot further than we were back in 2012 in addressing crime and the issues that we're faced in this parish. We're a whole lot better off today.
Sheriff, when we met, y'all were just beginning to implement the BRAVE program, and from everything I've read and heard, very successful. You contributed, from what I recall, the vast majority of the manpower.
Right.
And then the city contributed, and it's been very successful.
It has been, and you know, it's a cooperation and a collaboration between the DA, Baton Rouge City Police, Sheriff's Office, the other our federal partners here as well.
Which includes also, ATF, right?
Right, includes ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service, FBI, everybody, state police. All of us are really involved in that to some degree. Most of it falls on Baton Rouge City and the Sheriff's Office and the DA's office, but we couldn't do it without LSU and the input we get with them with the crime analysis, and they take everything that we collect and they give it back to us. And then, you know, it's not just identifying crime and going into the areas that we need to be in to address those issues, but it's identifying at-risk youth and giving them some opportunities, because BRAVE is not just enforcement, it's outreach. It's also identifying those individuals who are at risk and bringing them in and offering them alternatives to the life that they're living. And we've been successful in getting some of those individuals to take advantage of what BRAVE has to offer and to help try to turn their lives around.
Now, as I understand it, the Violent Crime Unit is combining the resources of all the law enforcement folks that we just talked about, but now y'all are starting to implement a new program which is dealing more with strategy and using data. Explain that to folks.
That's exactly right. Well, we got the VCU, Violent Crime Unit, which basically was Baton Rouge City Police homicide detectives, East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's homicide detectives coming together with the state police homicide investigators, and then partnering with our other federal agencies that we mentioned. And that's been a tremendous tool in helping us with our clearance rate with homicides and addressing those issues. But the other one, the Crime Strategies Unit, and that's something new that we just started, and the VCU is housed at the state police headquarters. The Strategies Unit is housed at Baton Rouge City Police headquarters, and it's just a data collection. So make it simple. It's just bringing in all the information into one area where these individuals can analyze that information and help us not only they can tell you pretty much the time and date of where crimes are occurring in East Baton Rouge Parish. So it helps us provide our resources and direct our resources to those areas during those times on those certain dates to try to stop crimes before they happen.
It's fascinating. So the Violent Crimes Unit was kind of wrapping up crimes that had already occurred, but this program in essence is kind of predicting and helping you be proactive. It's telling you who, when, where, and what they're going to do.
That's exactly right. And you know, I think the average citizen doesn't realize this, but Baton Rouge, and I give Hiller and his office most of their credit, you know, with BRAVE. You know, when it came here, I directed him, the people that came with that concept to his office, because I knew without Hiller and all it wouldn't happen. But I give him the credit for most of that taking place. But you know, it's all of us working together to really make this thing come together, and it takes everybody doing it. And let me say this, we wouldn't have the success we're having on either. The Violent Crime Unit that investigates homicides and tries to bring those people to justice, the Strategies Unit, we would not be successful without the public. You know, you've heard me say
that's
before,
right. That's what was my
any
next
efforts
question.
on law enforcement are short-lived without community involvement. The only way you get community involvement and build on it is building trust in the community. And the only way you do that is having your people out there on a daily basis, not just going in and answering a call, leaving, but being there on a daily basis and opening up some meaningful dialogue with the people that are living there and letting them know that we care and we're here and we're not going to be gone, and it allows them to voice to us what really their concerns are.
So you create a relationship of trust. And all right, well, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith, Legal Lines, and my special guest, Sheriff Sid Gautreaux. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Document your claim. What do I mean? Whenever you present a claim, whether it's for injuries in an automobile collision or for a breach of contract case or a business claim, it all boils down to documentation and evidence. For example, when you go to trial, basically both sides are presenting their evidence of what they believe to be their case. For example, also, if you're involved in an automobile collision, document the event. Talk to all the parties who are involved. Get their names, address, contact information, insurance info. Talk to the witnesses on the scene. Also get their contact information. Take photographs. With the phones we all have these days, everybody can take a picture and that paints 1,000 words. So document your claim. The Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is document the claim.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have back on the show Sheriff Sid Gautreaux. He's the Sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish. Let's dive back in, Sid. You were talking about how important community involvement is to all law enforcement because in essence, they're the eyes and the ears for you guys.
That's exactly right. You know, when the Brave concept came to us and I was asked, will you think it'll work? I knew it would work if everybody got on board because our philosophy with the Sheriff's Office has always been, yes, we're going to do our enforcement. We're going to do all the enforcement we have to because it goes hand in hand.
Right.
But we also do a tremendous amount of community outreach. And what we said before the break, you got to have that. You have to have the community working together with us working with the community in order to make this a safer place.
Well, it sounds like it's been exceptionally successful. Let's shift gears a little bit. You know, I've heard from you guys in law enforcement, in particular you, because you're in one of the hats that you wear is running and operating the parish prison, correct?
Right. As sheriff, I really have three hats. We have the civil office, we have the criminal office, and then we have corrections. All three are major entities within the office and very integral to the overall operation of the sheriff's office and success of it.
And you have a huge budget, but bottom line is you don't have enough money to build a new parish prison, and in your, in a lot of folks' opinion, that's absolutely necessary. Explain to the folks.
Well, let me explain to you the current prison system that we have. The current facility, half of it was built back in the 60s. That's where I worked at when I was there. And it's really dilapidated. The city parish has been in there to do all kinds of studies on how much it would cost, and there's no way it's feasible to fix.
You can't rehab it.
No, you can't rehab it. You got ventilation problems, you got plumbing problems, you got all kind of other things that exist in there. So the old part of the prison, which houses about half of our population, there's nothing you can do with it but just tear it down. The newer part of the prison was built in the 80s. And it's not that it's dilapidated, but it was not designed with any modern prison concept in mind. It's designed more as a school rather than a prison. So we have a lot of security issues there. We have no video surveillance. Most of the surveillance that is being done within that system is done eyeballs on eyeballs. It's no video stuff.
That's antiquated. It's all get out.
It's antiquated. Now, that brings us down to the nuts and bolts of this. That prison houses a little under 1,700 inmates. That's all we can help. We're mandated by law. We cannot put any more people in there than that 1,700. We have another 300 outside the prison that are housed in our work release program, which is another phenomenal program. But what happens is on any daily basis, on any given day, we have anywhere from 500 to 700 prisoners over and above that we have no room here to house, that we are forced to send out of parish. That costs the taxpayers of this parish about $8 million
every year.
Every year. We're not trying to build a bigger prison to house more prisoners. We're trying to build something that's adequate, that provides the safety, not only for the prisoners, but for the people that work there as well. And something that we don't have program space. When I mentioned earlier about going from 2 self-help programs when we took office to 20 now,
right.
We don't have the room for anymore. We're cramped on that. So building a new prison and building it to modern day standards would allow us to address chemical dependency, would allow us to address mental health issues, would allow us to address a lot of things like lack of education. We started a faith-based wing, which is voluntary. They go in there, they get daily denomination from all denominations, come in there, daily instruction. It's been a very, very positive program for us. Most of those people seek out all the other self-help programs, parenting, anger management, all the other things that we provide. What we don't have, Locke, we started a GED wing, which we had those that wanted
get a high school
education, that they were in a more conducive environment to go into that wing in order to do that. And we've graduated over 400 with GED. So, and I can tell you, as a law enforcement professional, as sheriff, there's two things that stand out to you with our inmates. Number one, the vast majority, 99% of them have an addiction to drug or alcohol. So the addiction is a big contributor to a life of crime in my estimation. The other thing is a lack of education. Here in East Baton Rouge Parish, the average educational level of the inmates out there is the 7th grade. So that lack of education and that chemical dependency has to be addressed.
They have no hope.
No hope. And they have no life skills at all. So they have to be taught those things. Then now you throw in the mental health aspect, and we're not equipped for that at all out there. So there's a lot of things that could be done if we had a new prison. And I think over a period of time, if you do enough things throughout the whole system, with the DAs, public defenders, with the courts, with law enforcement, we could reduce our prison population, which is our goal to do so. I wish I didn't have anybody out there.
Well, and the bottom line is, I've talked to Judge Marabella and so many law enforcement folks, including you, that indicate that, you know, there's a group of folks who are in the prison system who would not be there if the alcohol, the drug addiction could be addressed and they could be given the skills. And it's so much more economical. What is it, like 50 grand a year to take care of a prisoner as compared to a couple thousand?
45 to 50,000 a year.
And so not only does it make sense just from a moral, ethical standpoint to try and keep people out of jail and give them the skills to become productive citizens, it's just a wise economic decision.
That's right, and it's a proven fact. What we've done in the past for centuries in this country has not worked.
Well, because recidivism rate's what?
It's horrible. Nationwide, those that are incarcerated today, 72% of them within 1 to 5 years of their release are going to be back in the system.
Because all they're learning in the jails or in the prisons are how to be a criminal.
That's right. We're not teaching them how to be productive citizens. We're not giving them the skills or the tools they need to go out in society and be productive and survive.
Sheriff, let me ask you this, because as I understand it, you have great concerns, as do others, that if we don't deal with the prison situation voluntarily, the courts are going to force us to deal with it. What does that mean?
We are one step away, Locke, from having the federal government come in here and shut our prison down and put us under consent decree. What that means is the federal government will then be telling us what we're going to build, how we're going to build it, who's going to build it, and how we're going to run it, and we have no say-so on any of it.
Lose all control.
So, it's right, and it's going to cost the taxpayer a lot more money when that happens than us going on and doing what we should be doing
because then
ourselves.
The government's forced to finance it based on all the decisions of the court, not based on their representatives in public office.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. And we're only one step. In fact, I'm very surprised it hadn't happened before now. But it is going to happen, and it's going to happen soon if we don't do something.
And the way that would be financed, I know in the past Mayor Holden has proposed bonds that included dealing with the prison situation, and a bond would be issued, which is basically a promissory note where the government goes out and borrows money from investors, and an interest rate is paid back over 30 or 40 or 50 years. Is that the way it goes?
I'm sure, you know, that's beyond me, because as sheriff, I'm tasked with running it, but I'm not tasked with financing
we'll
and building of it.
deal with this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines, and my very special guest, Sid Gautreaux, Sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I have a Legal Lines tip for you. Remember, knowledge is power, and I want you to know if you're injured and you have lost wages because of that injury, Louisiana law gives you a claim for that loss. Typically, it's going to require medical evidence from a medical doctor stating because of your injuries, you can't work. It's a pretty simple claim. If you had a job before the injury, doc says you can't work from the date of the accident, and 3 months later he says you can work, you can figure out what you've lost in wages. Circumstances occur, however, when the injury results in permanent physical and functional limitations. Now you can't do the job according to the doctor that you could do before the accident. So the question becomes, is there any work you can do, and what is the difference in wages? But the court doesn't just look at what you earned in the past, it also looks at your earning capacity. That is your ability to earn wages in the future, promotions, additional education. So my Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is make sure you know your rights when you're presenting that lost wage claim.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, pleased to have back on the show our Sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish, Sid Gautreaux. Sid, thanks again for being here. Tell me a little bit more about the problems we're having with recidivism, because you know, it's a fancy word, but basically means somebody that goes in there is coming back real soon.
Hey, coming back real soon. I mentioned before the break what the national statistics on recidivism. Here in Louisiana, it's about 62%.
So 6 out of 10 guys are coming back within 18 months or so.
Within 3 to 5 years.
And
Most
as I
of them
understand
are back
it,
within 3 years.
Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate. We put more people in prison as a percentage of our population than any other state, some say any other nation in the world.
That's exactly right. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of it is recidivism. You know, we don't do enough to try to reduce the recidivism, because you're not going to just put these people in jail. They're going to be back on the street. And if you don't show them some alternatives, teach them a better way of life, teach them how to do some things that they're not capable of doing, if you don't teach them that, they're coming back. And of course, you know, I do realize and I recognize the fact that Louisiana is per capita the #1 state in the nation as far as incarceration. But what people don't say either is we're #3 in homicides per capita in the United States, and we're #1 in violent crimes per capita in the United States.
It's a horrible situation.
It's all.
So we're talking about crime going down, but even with it going down, things are rough.
That's right. That's exactly
things are rough.
Right. But we have to address this issue of recidivism, and the only way we can do that is having a facility that we can provide as much as we possibly can to help these people get on the right path. Because like I say, they're going back out into society, and if they don't have tools when they get there, you know, if they don't have some avenues to get turn from the life of crime, they're coming back.
All right, let's shift gears. Talk to me about the programs that the Sheriff's Department has in place to help victims of crimes.
We have a crime victims assistance program. Coordinated as Jane Wood. I'm sure you know Jane. She's worked for Hiller, and she was his victims coordinator. But each year, they're there to help victims of crime, their families, survivors of crimes. Last year alone, we had 198 cases, people that we helped to the tune of about $157,000. We helped them with lost wages, funeral expenses, counseling, a variety of things. So, and each year, we just last week had our evening of remembrance. And,
right,
and that's
I saw
a
it
time. Yeah, that's a time when we bring those families of victims in, and we light candles for each one of their lost loved ones, just to let them know that they're gone, but their light still shines. And our purpose is just try to help them heal, help them deal with the situation, and help them, give them a sense of community that they have, their loved ones are gone, but they're not forgotten, and we're here to help. And it's been a very positive thing. We always do the evening of remembrance, and Hiller's office, DA, does that in conjunction with us. And then Hiller has the deal at the park, the day at the park,
right,
which you just saw, where he brings the families and their kids all in. That's his, and we assist with that. So we work together with all of these things.
Let's shift gears one more time. You know, I've been reading here over the last year or so some really tragic stories where law enforcement personnel, and even here in the last month or so, firefighters being shot and killed sitting in their cars or responding to emergencies. And there seems to be, hopefully not in Louisiana and in Baton Rouge, but there seems to be nationally this distrust developing. What is your view?
It's very, very disheartening, and it's something that I pray about every day. In my 39 years in law enforcement, I have never seen this attitude towards, this aggression towards law enforcement. And it's not just law enforcement, like you mentioned, firefighters and stuff. And you know, I mean, God, I don't know where that starts or stops or whatever. You know, I understand that a lot of it's been prompted by some things that have happened nationally that are quite disturbing to me.
Right.
And those issues have to be addressed and dealt with. But there seems to be a sense of some entities in this country to label all of law enforcement as being the bad guys, and we're not, you know. I can tell you that, to sit here and tell you we don't have bad apples, we do. But we do everything we can to try to weed those people out before we ever hire them.
Well, Sid, tell the folks about how you try and make sure in the beginning you don't get any in the force. And if some are identified in the force, you deal with it.
That's right. Well, number one, our hiring process, they got to go through extensive background check. We check with their former employees. We check their criminal history. We check references, even sideline references, as we call them, not maybe the persons that they name, but other people that they've named throughout their hiring process. You know, and of course the drug test and
psychological
all that
evaluation
stuff helps out. Psychological, they go through an extensive psychological test, and they're deemed to either be suitable or non-suitable to us. So, you know, all of these things are in place, and we have other things as well in the hiring process that helps us. It gives us indicators, but some of those people fall through the cracks. So how do you eliminate that? By monitoring their work, by monitoring what they do or don't do. And when something does show up, some adverse behavior, you address it, you deal with it, you handle it. And whatever it may be, if it means termination, you terminate them. If it means that, okay, it's something on a borderline, but you might want to counsel them, but it puts those people on our radar where we're continually monitoring them. So if that behavior it persists, then we know we got somebody we can use in law enforcement.
And as I understand it, y'all actually train folks to deal with scenarios that might maybe put me over the edge or something.
That's exactly right.
So that they're accustomed to having to deal with a stressful situation.
We've always done diversity training, how to deal with mental health people. We've always done that, but not to the depth that we're doing it today, because we're dealing with that more and more. But I think it goes back to the basics. Why do I get in law enforcement? Because I'm here to help, you know, and those are the people we look for to try to bring in. The people that have true servant hearts and mentalities that realize that's all we provide. We don't manufacture some good or something. We just provide a service to the community. And that's what we try to attract, those service-minded individuals that are here to serve. And that's generally going to be the officer or deputy that you're not going to have any problem with. They're just going to excel. They're going to do their job. So, you know, those are all things that we look at. But diversity, you know, we're a very diverse society, you know, and we've got to understand that, and we got to understand that different ethnic groups handle situations different than others, and we've got to be equipped to deal with that.
Well, it's interesting. When you and I were talking earlier, you said, Locke, our force mirrors the ethnicity and the racial makeups of our community.
That's right. I've always been one, even when I was at Baker, when I started and I was 29 years old as chief. You know, I've always had the mindset that the workforce, and it doesn't matter whether it's law enforcement, fire department, EMS, or just public works, I think it should mirror the community in which we serve. You know, and if you should have an equal number of African Americans, whites, Hispanics, Orientals,
whatever it is.
And that's what we do.
Sid, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you again. Thanks for being with us on Legal Lines with our special guest, Sheriff Sid Gautreaux. We'll see you next time.